I shouldn't have volunteered with that.
Hello, this is John Jarrold, who is the UK's leading agent for science fiction, fantasy and horror fiction. He's been a publisher in that area and is now an agent who specialises exclusively in that. And we're just going to ask him a couple of quick questions.
Absolutely.
John, just rehearse your background a little bit more. You were a publisher for how long?
15 years. I ran Orbit, and then I was with Random House and then Simon & Schuster publishing SF Fantasy between 1988 and 2002.
And what took you out of publishing and into agenting?
I got a bit fed up with the corporate side of things, with the suits, and answering to sales directors. So I became a freelance editor, and then about 18 months into that, authors started coming to me and saying, have you thought about being an agent? If so, would you be my agent? So I really fell into it. It wasn't planned at all.
And you now prefer it, I guess?
It's hugely enjoyable to run one's own business.
Yeah.
I work from home. I work on a computer all day, so it's easy. And of course, having the publishing background, it means I know what publishers have to go through. So I try to take that on board when I'm submitting something.
And when you're taking on a work, do you take it on only because you love it, or is there a part of your brain which is also calculating how this is going to work in acquisition committee?
Has to be both.
Yeah.
You have to love a book, personally and professionally. Now, you never buy, as a publisher, you never buy a book purely commercially, but equally you never buy a book purely because you love it. You have to have that calculating side of the brain as well.
And are there times when a book comes across your desk and you think, I just love this book, I know it won't sell, but I love it?
Yes, and what I tend to say at that point, and I said this as a publisher as well, is go back to the author and say, look, I think you're a fabulous writer. I'll tell you why I don't think this will sell. Now, of course, if you want to show it to other agents, of course you should do that. If nothing happens and you want to talk to me again about other projects, I will be delighted, because you have to be aware that it will do nobody any good if the first book goes out there and it bombs.
No, I agree with that. And I guess, in terms of reading the market, do you think the market has changed over this period, and if so, changed how?
Yeah, I mean, science fiction is stronger than it's been for a long time. The fantasy market since 1988 has broadened. In 88, the two big names were Robert Jordan and Tad Williams. They were the two names that were taken on that year. I was lucky enough to take on Jordan at Orbit. And that was still in the post-Tolkien era of epic fantasy. Whereas now you'll have someone like George R.R. Martin, who's writing almost Shakespearean fantasy. You'll have Twyla Miafu, who is writing very interesting stuff, some of which is almost Dickensian in tone. And it's much more varied than it used to be. So that's a good thing.
And do you think authors of traditional high fantasy can still sell? Can you still rewrite Tolkien and sell that?
No. Elves and dwarves are old hat. Nobody wants elves and dwarves, basically, or a Dark Lord in the East.
Yeah.
You have to be...
There's got to be a Dark Lord in the West.
You've got to be more subtle, more sophisticated than that now. It's probably more character-led now than it used to be. And there are far fewer black hats and white hats. There are many, many, many more shades of grey now.
And do you think, because I know I once sent material to Angry Robot and they said, really like it, but this is much too straight for us. We need more kind of genre bending, in effect. I mean, I guess that's what you're saying. You need to take traditional genres and work with those in a new way.
Yeah, it depends who you're going with, because Angry Robots specifically want that sort of thing. Whereas if you're dealing with Orbit or Voyager at HarperCollins or Gollancz, you're looking for something that is more traditional, more centre of the market. But equally, yes, it's as the market is in 2011, not as the market was in the year 2000 or 1988.
Okay, last question. If you have one piece of advice for the new writer, what would that be?
Well, finish your work.
Finish your work.
Then put it away for 2 months, so you can look at it objectively, and then go through it word by word, editing it. Because you want to show the best possible version of your work to an agent. You only get one chance with that word. So make it beautiful. Make it the best it can be.
Perfect. John, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.